Hello, greetings, namaste. My name is Timothy Halloran. I am an astrologer, so they say. You can get in contact with me and schedule astrology readings through my website below, or I also have a Patreon page for additional resources and extra astrology, and we'll be holding our live Q&A session for Patreon members this weekend, March 31st. I've got to cut straight to the chase because I'm not sure that this video camera's battery can last for the amount of astrology that I need to communicate today. So it is approximately 12 o'clock noon on Wednesday, March 28th, 2018. The moon has just entered the sign of Virgo, and on March 30th will enter Libra. The 31st we have a full moon at 10 degrees of the sign of Libra. The sun is now at 7 degrees of Aries and square to Saturn tomorrow, March 29th. So, sun is square to Saturn, rite of passage time. Yes, as we'll be talking about the next several weeks going into March 2018 is one of the most intense and fast-paced times of 2018. But yes, there is a grist-in-the-mill tension that we can be dealing with at this time that has a lot of opportunity for change, readjustment, and transformation. Sun being square to Saturn right now, we are looking at how we are growing, how are we maturing, and how we are anchoring ourselves in the world as authorities at this time. One of the main themes of this period is self-initiation into our own authorities, so that way we can do more, we can be more, we can accomplish more, and construct more in our given society and world. All of this is being accompanied by Mercury retrograde. Mercury stationed retrograde about a week ago, March 22nd, at 16 degrees of Aries. Now, you may already be aware that this is a particularly volatile Mercury retrograde. Not all Mercury retrogrades are created equal. This Mercury retrograde begins with a square to Pluto and is now moving retrograde, will square Mars this coming Wednesday, April 4th, squares Saturn this coming Thursday, April 5th, Mercury stations direct April 15th at 4 degrees of Aries, square to Saturn. So Mercury is in this pinch, square to Pluto, Mars, and Saturn throughout his entire Mercury retrograde. Now, what is Mercury retrograde? It is a time of self-reflection. It is a time of processing in order to readjust how we are directing our energy, particularly with this Mercury in the sign of Aries. This is about how we are directing our energy, our willpower, what we are focusing on in life, and what we talked about in the last video is one of the main questions of this Mercury retrograde, which we can be reflecting upon, is what exactly do you want? What do you want from life? What do you want from your relationships? What do you want from the world? What are your desires and what is your direction? One of the main themes of this moon cycle and this coming month is aligning our willpower, finding attunement to our own personal storehouse of energy, of passion, and of drive. We're finding out what we really want, so that way we can attune ourselves and align ourselves with our willpower and initiate ourselves into the authority that we must embody in order to make change happen, in order to get things done. Easier said than done when we have all of these squares between the sun, and Mercury retrograde is conjoining the sun, moving retrograde. Kahimi, the sun, is this Sunday, April 1st. Mercury joins the sun retrograde, also trine to the moon's north node. This is a powerful time of self-reflection and realization. And there can be eureka moments. There can be things that are clicking together. This week in particular, And so I really encourage us to do self-reflection, but even though Mercury is square to Pluto, we also need to make sure that we're having the time to relax and process, which is really, really ultra important these weeks, as we'll talk about. But Mercury square to Pluto right now, I mean, this whole Mercury retrograde, it's intense. You know, Mercury square to Pluto is restless, wants to get to the bottom of everything, wants to see beneath the surface and really figure things out. And this can also be very hyper-reactive, very instinctual. He said this, she said this, that triggered this, I reacted this way, which catalyzed that in that other person, which snowballed into this, which transformed into that. We are seeing our unconscious programming, and we're also seeing our desires, which are different per each and every individual. And this can create conflicts, this can create disagreements, and that is a necessary component of this readjustment, this change, and this transformation which is going on. So Mercury retrograde pulls us in the past. I'm back here where I used to shoot my videos when I lived a couple homes ago around 2013, 2014. Mercury retrograde brings us around old friends, old conversations, old experiences which reoccur for us to reflect on our own past. And a huge part of this reflection is necessary because not only do we have the Sun-Mercury conjunction, which is really tuning into ourself. Sun in Aries is about individualization. This is about freedom. This is about breaking away from the bondages of the past. And again, it can be past experiences, it can be relationships, it can be authorities, it can be worldly duties and obligations, which are catalyzing this deeper reflection and showing us what it is that may get in the way of us actualizing our total individual willpower and freedom. And again, this can be challenging because this Sun-Mercury conjunction is square to Mars and Saturn, which is saying, yes, you want to do your own thing, yes, you want to be an individual, yes, you want to be free. And that is easy to conceptualize. That may be something that we desire and have a yearning passion for. But harnessing that passion, embodying that passion, and integrating that passion into the real world, into our relationships, and into our job or career is easier said than done. There is a creative tension here, which is inviting us to bridge our individual passion with our relationships and our work, our duties, and our obligations in the world. But we can basically anticipate that there will be many challenges in the way. And we need to see these challenges as opportunities. We need to see the hidden blessings which are sown all over this period, even though they may be hidden beneath the veil of challenges, frustration, and even pain. Pain can be there because the world is not an ideal or perfect place. No person or relationship can be an ideal or perfect relationship or person, thing, or place. And therefore, there is a deeper surrendering, letting go, and a dire need to be flexible at this time in order for these adjustments and changes to happen, which can take us in the direction of freedom and liberation. And yet, it's almost impossible to do this in a way that is just totally free from work. You know, freedom does require work. Freedom sometimes does require pain and suffering, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, because there is a hidden blessing in this. The hidden blessing is the awakening of the heart of compassion, which requires pain and suffering as an initiation into our own confidence in our own authority. So let's use some examples of this. Well, we've got this full moon coming up March 31st, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 10 degrees of Libra. A full moon in Libra illuminates relationships. It illuminates how we are connecting and relating to others in general. Libra is the relating function. How we relate to others, how we relate to and share our own values. And Libra is ruled by Venus. Venus, just several hours before this full moon, moves into the sign of Taurus. And so Venus, the ruler of Libra, having just moved into Taurus and at 0 degrees at the time of this full moon, is also a signature that this can be a change of values or a change of relationships in order to integrate what we actually value into our lives and relationships. But there can be a reset button that's being hit here. A part of hitting this reset button is the necessary detachment and untanglement from all of the worldly pressures, duties, responsibilities, and association to various authority figures and systems and organizations. We need to let the dissolving of culture and groups take place if we even remotely desire for freedom, for individualization, and our own stepping up to the plate into our own authority and our own capabilities in the world. We don't become authorities by being dictated by other people's judgments or impressions or measures or expectations, or by playing other people's games, that we unconsciously self-sacrifice our own desires, willpower, and goals for, because we are deeply conditioned to believe that we have to play those games in order to do anything. Well, that's not called being an authority, or being self-sovereign, or being self-confident. That is called being thrown around by the pressures and the whims of other people and the world. And so a huge part of the creative tension at this time is we've got this plain and obvious full moon in Libra opposite the Sun and Mercury in Aries, which is self and others. T-squaring Saturn and Mars in Capricorn. So this is a big deal because Mars coming up to Saturn, Mars is now passing Saturn in Saturn's own sign of Capricorn for the first time in roughly 30 years. And this is a big deal because Mars-Saturn conjunction is about aligning our willpower and our drive with our capabilities to be authorities and construct and build what we want to in the world. This is about inner and outer strength development. The challenges, the rite of passages at this time are the obstacles, are the hurdles which we are overcoming and jumping over in order to develop a newly found, profound level of inner and outer strength. And so Mars and Saturn wants to build, wants to accomplish, wants to step up, wants to do more, wants to be higher on the ladder, wants to be closer to the top of the pyramid in the hierarchical scheme of things, wants to be in control. And there is a lot of opportunity to harness all of this practical, outward, external, extroverted, masculine energy. And simultaneously, we're encountering all of the good, the bad, and the ugly that comes with that masculine energy and the conditioning which surrounds it. The pressures which surrounds this. What does success mean? What does success mean to the world? What does success mean to the organization that you're a part of? What does success mean in terms of the standards of outer world accomplishments? Can easily become the distractions or the pressures that fill us with anxiety that can lead us to insecurities, freak outs, and breakdowns. Yes, indeed, this is a time of breakdowns. Take it from me. On the actual day of the spring equinox, when the sun moved into Aries and Mars moved into Capricorn, I had a full-fledged emotional mental breakdown, and I decided to take it out on a wooden door, and the door won the battle. Not even a scratch on the door, but I do have a broken hand now, and this is not a big deal. You know, this is such a small thing in the total scheme of things. I'm not saying this to complain, I'm using this as an example of, oh yeah, this is a volatile time. We need to be wary, we need to be careful, we need to slow down and relax, because it's not a big deal, and it's okay. And we don't need to take it all so seriously, and we don't need to have it all figured out right now. A huge part of this time is, if we want to become more strong, more confident, more capable, a part of this is the necessary component of unplugging, detaching, settle down, leave it for later, wait till you calm down. Because layer after layer after layer of thing can just build up so fast we can break down before we know what hit us. And that's exactly what I experienced. Not only is this an extremely tense, hyper-reactive, frustrating, challenging, grist in the mill, let's bust it out, we gotta do it, pressure's on it, we can do it, and we can do it. This is a rite of passage. This is what makes us strong. This is where we can make changes and set course in a new direction that can take us very, very far. So this is a thoroughly productive time, but beneath the surface, there can also be a lot of cathartic releasing and deep acknowledgement of our soul's journey and the problems we've encountered and the wounds that we've developed and the unconscious programming that has formed around these wounds as coping mechanisms, as escapisms, as ways of dealing with these fundamental insecurities. The last new moon was conjoined Chiron. This whole lunar cycle has a very Chironic theme, which is all about healing. It's all about mending. In order to heal, in order to mend, you must slow down, you must reflect. Otherwise, we do experience breakdowns and crashes, and we end up in hospital beds where life forces us to unplug, detach, and slow down. So be ahead of the game. Slow down, detach. You don't have to have the conversation. You don't have to have everything figured out. You don't have to have the next 30 years planned right now. This is Mercury retrograde. Saturn is stationing retrograde. This is about flexibility being a necessary prerequisite to doing anything right now. And this is so important when it comes to being an authority in ourselves. What are we really authorities of? What are we doing in the world? What are we accomplishing is our nature. Is what comes natural to us. We can own what we already embody. We can own what we already easily and effortlessly understand, because it's already a part of us. And when it comes time to choosing our careers and making ourselves known in the world and carving our own path and trailblazing our own direction in life, what do all of these things require? It requires us to be in tune with our own individual, unique selves and nature, so we can step up and confidently embody who we are. Why I am stressing this, why I am saying this in this tone, is to be so aware and to be so flexible and to integrate as much space in between everything that you can right now. You want to have this spaciousness, you want to have this inflatable padding around everything, and time to settle down and breathe and tune in and meditate between each and every breath right now, because that's how we tune into, is this right for me? Is this who I am? Or is this another person's game, another person's system, or the world's lost and old and crumbling system of expectations and obligations which won't work for you anyways? It's so important to do this because we do not receive this permission, this encouragement or affirmation from the world, from our relationships, or from the organizations we are a part of. Why? Because they each all have their own agendas. And that's okay. That's okay. This isn't about one-way, one-size-fits-all solutions. Mercury square to Pluto can sometimes get a little too much all one way or the next, black or white, like assuming intense conclusions, when there's like a million in between middle road solutions that we may not be seeing or grasping at. So take the time for those things to make their way to the surface, and you're relaxing and you're breathing, because you will never accomplish or be successful at what you are trying to unnaturally force, right? And yet when we look into the world and we look at society and we look at the companies, the careers, and how virtually almost everybody is playing the game, it's like it's all a natural force. I feel uncomfortable, I feel insecure, I feel drained, I feel like I'm compromising my soul or my own emotional integrity in order to keep up. To keep up with the standards, to keep up with the expectations, to be able to pay other people for the services that we need. It's like, is this really working, or am I compromising my own integrity, my own direction? Or am I so possessed by this insecurity that I am failing, or that I'm going to get thrown under the bus, or that the world is going to betray me or abandon me once again, that I am operating out of this constant grabbing and trying to control and change and possess, because we're being driven by this insane anxiety and insecurity that comes from this sense of, oh my gosh, I'm about to lose everything, or it's not enough, or the rug's going to get ripped out from under me, or people are going to judge me if I show this side of myself. Or if people see my weakness, they'll throw me under the bus. Or if I become broken, or if I am vulnerable with how I actually feel, that will be seen as a problem, which will make me feel even more worse and more inadequate and drive me even more insane with insecurities. And so these fears force us into these situations where we're just constantly overexhausting, overspending, trying to control, trying to possess, and trying to own much more than what is authentically ours. We're trying to own more than what we possibly could be in control of, and it's not our job, it's not our business, and actually what that causes us is to sacrifice or lose our own authority. Full moon in Libra, we want to be everybody's best friend because that would make us feel emotionally cool, and wouldn't it be nice if we could all be one family and one team and all collaborate and all be together and always be happy and always be nice? And that's nice. That sounds pretty and that sounds polite. And you know what? We need some of this. This is a very delicate period of balance. Like, we all have these spinning dishes on the ends of poles here. Because even though we can't confiscate or sacrifice our own individual willpower and freedom and desires, we also can't just break away and leave our careers and leave the organizations we're a part of and break up out of all of our relationships and ditch all of our friends just because we can't have that perfect communal collaborative reality. We won't give up on it. I mean, I see a lot of times these people run off to these communes where that's an intention, and it oftentimes just turns into this burst bubble, wake up to reality, experience, because we all have to grow out of that. If we want to become practical, capable authorities in the world, we have to balance what we can control and what we cannot. And we can't create perfection. We can't create perfect and harmony and balance in this world at this time. We've all got too many things going on the inside and the outside simultaneously. And so we do need politeness. We do need to be able to relate to other people on many different dimensions, from many different perspectives. And again, not jump to conclusions and not make it all or nothing. Not all or nothing. No, there's resolutions. There's, there's compromise. There's mediation. There's counseling. Go to a counselor. Talk these things over off of other people. Reflect your ideas. Reflect your struggles off of a broad range of other people to give us more perspective. But ultimately, these solutions, these creative discoveries can be made through the trial and error, through coming up to the walls and experiencing the catalysts and having our wounds brought to the surface. This is incredibly productive in honing in on what we're actually doing in the world that matters for both ourselves and others. That's why we can't ultimately compromise our individual nature, because we're using our life, our story, the good, the bad, and the ugly is jet fuel. And guess what? Anger, frustration, and pain and suffering is all good. It's all good. Pain, anger, reactions, defensiveness, frustration, suffering is all good. It's fuel to the fire. It's creative jet fuel. It's inspiration. It's passion. But just like rodeo lassoing a wild stallion or a wild bull, it takes mastery to be able to harness these things and have them work for us. That takes a lot of trial and error, and it takes a lot of forgiveness. Forgiveness of ourselves is number one priority in order to be capable of being forgiving of others. Oh yeah, we make mistakes, and oh yeah, nobody's perfect, and oh yeah, we've all got bumps and bruises from the insecurities and the experiences that we've felt in the past. And there are many, many, many layers of this that we have to sort through and learn how to cope with in healthy rather than unhealthy ways. Well, what are the unhealthy ways? The unhealthy ways can be workaholism. I'm going to cope with my feelings of insecurity by putting my head down and just doing what I'm expected to do, or just busting ass, or I assume that this was my goal 10 decades ago, and so I guess I'll just keep doing that, and that's going to surmount to success the way I thought. Not necessarily. Or trying to control everything. That's not exactly the way I want it, so these changes need to be made, and I feel out of control here, and that's not acceptable, or I'm being disrespected here, and that's unacceptable. We want to figure out how to express these things, but express these things in a calm, settled, non-violent way, which is easier said than done. And when we react, and when we get angry, and when we accidentally, energetically vomit on other people, it's not the end of the world. We pick up the pieces, we apologize the next day, somebody apologizes to us, and we empathize with them because we've been there. We've experienced pain too, and that pain's made us anxious and insecure, and we've blown up coming out of pain and anxiety. This is about forgiveness. This is about understanding each other as human beings. We have to use this anger, this frustration, and this reactivity ultimately to fight for a cause. And that's the beauty of this time. There's the opportunity to really reflect on what do I personally desire and what do I value. And then revolutionize the whole frickin' game from the ground up. Change the rules of how you are doing relationship, how you're connecting with others, how you're doing your job. to make win-win solutions more possible and more accessible and more in our perspective. Oh yeah, it's right over there. We can do this thing together. We just got to find some balance and some harmony, and maybe it's not perfect yet, but that's okay. I give a little and you give a little, and it's a mutual exchange. You know, that's the win-win here. Venus is on Uranus right now. Venus conjoins Uranus Wednesday, March 28th before moving into Taurus on the 31st. This is about breaking free from any of the limiting ways that we've related to others in the past. And Uranus is the future. Uranus is the unknown future that we've never tasted, we've never known. It is so liberating, it is so inconceivable, we cannot fathom it. But it is changing the whole game. You can relate to others in a totally new way that allows you to authentically be who you are and work and contribute and be in authority. So the opportunity here is this self-reflection. Venus at 0 degrees of Taurus at the time of this new moon in Libra is saying, please take the time to get in tune with your heart, with what you value, with what you cherish. Taurus is our treasure. Taurus is just what we want to relish and chew on and soak up every little bit of and just hold in our fingers and embody it and breathe it in and push the limit of how good we can use our own values, our own things, the people, the things, the elements, the ideas that we love the most is a jet fuel for pushing the limit of how good we can feel inside of ourselves. That's what we're tuning into. And Venus is going to square the moon's nodes these next weeks. Venus squares the moon's node on April 9th. Which means that is so important that we do not overlook our own personal needs in order to tune into ourselves. This self-reflection process is so important and necessary at this time to find the correct attunement and make these changes without blowing up. That means honor your pace. Honor your feelings, honor your sensations. When you start to feel too claustrophobic, we need to be more hyper in tune with our bodies. We need to be more grounded and in tune with our senses on this earth, so that way we're more hyper aware of when that anxiety and insecurity starts to snowball. We need to be able to catch that earlier, which is basically the work for all of us in this overstimulated world and culture. We have to be able to unplug and find our own pace, our own rhythm that works for us particularly, that allows us to breathe. And so take the time for yourself to hermit, to self-reflect, to have your own space, to meditate, and put yourself in front of the altar of all the things that you love and cherish, the music, the incense, the sensational things that remind you of who you deeply are. So you can tune in and you can recalibrate, because this is a profound time. The next several months, the moon's north node, the moon's nodes are aligned with the nodes of Neptune. Neptune's north node is at 10 degrees Leo. The moon's north node is at 13 degrees moving backwards. This is about aligning with our own individual and personal spiritual truths from the inside out, from our hearts. And the north node of Neptune in Leo says we will find our spiritual journey, we will find our work, we will find our authority in the world by tuning into our own hearts, our own personal story and experience. No, our ego is not a bad thing. No, the ego is not a bad word. The ego is our divine gift from God, each of us being unique children of God with unique talents and traits coming from our personal story of healing, of growing, of learning, of overcoming. The north node in Neptune in Leo is saying we've spent many, many thousands of years meditating out of our bodies, trying to leave this world, trying to disassociate, coming into the essence of we're all one, and that's good and that's excellent, and so what? We are each participating in this world as individuals. We each have unique roles talents, gifts, which are opportunities for us to do good, noble, healing work in the world. And we all know we need this at this point in time on this planet in this day and age. So find your work, initiate yourself into your own authority. Saturn stations retrograde coming up this April 17th at 9 degrees Capricorn. We will initiate ourselves into our own authority by unplugging from the cultural expectations and obligations, the training wheels and conditioning that we typically receive in our early childhood. The karma which is coming from generation after generation of tragedy, trauma, and abuse, which generation after generation we are each all healing. We are taught by authorities, we learn from authorities, our teachers, our parents, our guides, they give us all the tools, the resources, and the wisdom, and then we take all of those things and we have to continue to move forward. We have to unplug from the unhealthy expectations and obligations coming from other people that can interfere with that progression of evolution. Which means that in our relationships to other people, with our bosses, with our authorities, with the groups and organizations which we are a part of, we must all preserve this mutual respect. Our teachers taught us, and we're our own teacher. And we have our own students, and they are their own teachers. And we work together as a group, and we're all each creative souls that are capable and gifted and unique in individual ways, which cannot be confiscated, which cannot be compromised, but needs to be integrated with the group, the organization, so that way we all feel special, we all feel liberated within our relationships, without having to be liberated from our relationships. We can feel special and recognized and like we're doing really good things in the world as a group, but we are not depending upon the group to carry us in order to do that work and accomplish these things in the world. The south node of the moon is in Aquarius. Saturn is stationing in Capricorn retrograde. Let the dissolving of culture, of groups, of early childhood cultural programming dissolve in order to expose the new realities that we've never experienced or tasted to come in. That requires us to face our insecurities. That requires us to face our pain or our fears. And that means in order to get to freedom, in order to liberate ourselves, sometimes we must go through painful experiences. An easy example is we would all love to have ideal parents, we would all love to have ideal children, we would all love to have ideal family sharing situations, and isn't it rare to actually see that or experience that in life, if we're being honest? And of course there's many nice and polite people out there, and that's a wonderful skill to have, but we all need a balance between politeness and authenticity, so that way we don't compromise, or that way we don't pave over our own suffering and self-sacrifice unconsciously. And so we have to sometimes understand that it's painful, that we can't always be best friends with our parents or our authorities or our teachers. And in that pain of separation and letting us go our own ways and be individuals, that actually allows us to come back together and form relationships in new ways, in ways that we never previously conceptualized, that works even better, in more beautiful, in more natural, in more loving, healing ways, in more heart-opening ways, where we come together and we see and we celebrate our union and our separation in a way which is all honoring the human experience, what it means to be on our own individual journey in a world where we must work together and collaborate. That just sets us up for this heart-opening experience, right? And so it's okay if we feel rage or pain or frustration. Those are symptoms that the healing journey is happening, that our journey of liberation and evolution and progression and taking things forward is happening. And we are learning to reconceptualize what those feelings of insecurities or anxiety or pressure, what's actually going on? Where are those things actually coming from? And when we do feel pain, when we do react, just like a trail of breadcrumbs, we are following those things into our greatest, most heart-awakening, spiritual and healing experiences. Because ultimately our work in the world is some form of loving service unto others, because that's what gives us personally and individually our greatest satisfaction. And that work that we're offering to others, which gives us that satisfaction, comes directly out of our own nature, our own sensitivities, our own experiences, and our own healing journey. It begins with the wound, which initiates the healing journey, which initiates us into becoming a healer of others. It's all beautiful. It's all wonderful. But we must reframe and reconceptualize how we see all of the above. All of our interactions and all of our work is a part of that journey of healing and self-initiation into our work and service and involvement with others and the world. Woo! So it is a profound time. Really quickly, asteroid Vesta moves into Capricorn on April 1st and is trine to Venus and Taurus. It's such an opportunity for us to tune in to what our real work is and find alignment. Yes, coming out of this period, we can find a pace, a momentum, and a focus that works most practically and is most fulfilling to allow us to charge forward. We'll talk about this most next time, but Chiron is moving into Aries in April. April 15th, Chiron moves into Aries. This is a powerful point, the Aries point, the very beginning of the zodiac. Chiron moving into Aries is about initiation of new healing endeavors. It is about healing ourselves, healing the masculine, healing our confidence and our own individual path. And also a theme with this Chiron on the Aries point can be the beauty of the unfolding of life and the healing progression of nature, requiring surrendering and sometimes a deeper heart-centered spiritual sacrifice. We have to let go of exterior expectation. We have to let go from what people would love from us in order to sometimes love them or help them or love ourselves the most. So it's very profound, it's very beautiful. I also have an article about Chiron in Aries, which I will include a link of in the bio description below, in the latest, in the OPA magazine. So if you're interested more in Chiron and Aries, check that out. And as always, I am wishing you all absolutely the best in all of these things. I'm very happy that the camera is still going very quickly. Also, this full moon is conjunct asteroid Persephone. The Persephone myth is a myth of death and rebirth. Allow your relationships, your values, your relating and sharing with others to go through a death and rebirth in order to come into newfound life, harmony, and connections with others. We must go through these necessary and natural periods of change. Death and rebirth equals transformation, equals evolution. And so even if there is this somewhat tumultuous experience, it is like sowing a fresh seed in the earth that can blossom and come into brand new fruition with beautiful, fresh, new energy. So again, this Saturday, March 31st, if you're not already a member of my Patreon page and you would like to ask me any questions about astrology, your chart, spirituality, or otherwise, sign up to the Patreon page and we do a live Q&A every month. That's going to be this Saturday, the 31st, for the month of March. All right, I'm going to go take a breather myself. Again, so much love to yourself and your beloveds. Please take care. Namaste.